Greetings builders, Daniel here and welcome to the part 3 of my 12 League Starter Builds for the Necropolis League. If you missed the previous parts, don't worry, you can find their links together with the POBs and complete guides for all those builds in the video description. And if the video helps you, please leave a thumbs up to support the channel. Thank you very much and let's get into it! Let's start with a build that is everyone's favorite, the spin to win Cyclone of Tumult Slayer with the Duelist class. The last PoE expansion brought the Transfigured gems with it. This means an alternative version of active steel gems. The Cyclone skill got the Cyclone of Tumult, that is a Cyclone wider and more powerful, but with the downside of being a lot slower. However, with an easy trick we can remove this downside and simply have a Cyclone with 33% more damage and 40% more error effect. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. It's just amazing to be always moving and massacring all the poor enemies on the way. The boss damage is also incredible. Once the build is done, you are going to kill even the big bosses in just a matter of seconds. And above all of that, this build is very simple and easy to put together. Now, to list the cons, I would point a few important issues and I'd like to ask you to pay close attention here. You see, this build has a great survivability once it's done. But when you're leveling your character, you need to pace your progression, because you're always very close to enemies. If you're not prepared, you are going to die. So take the extra time to pick up a few more levels before progressing to a high tier content. Another useful tip about your survivability is how to deal with stuns. On this build, you get stun immunity with cluster duels, but not everyone can afford them right away. If that's your case, or if you're just having problems with stuns sooner, do this simple trick of picking those evasion nodes and this mastery. Believe me, it helps a lot. As for budget, you can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 90 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, you need to invest around 115 chaos, and for easily completing your atlas, I recommend investing around 6 divines. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipment that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You only need one mandatory unique item for this build, the Stampede boots that guarantee that your movement speed will always be 150% of its pace. This means that the downside of Cyclone of Tumult will mean absolutely nothing to us. For clear speed I'll give it 9 out of 10. Cyclone never stops moving and have a huge error effect, so you can farm your maps without the need to stop for casting or anything like that. It's just awesome and very satisfying. The boss damage is just amazing, deserves 10 out of 10. When this build is done, you're going to easily achieve over 15 million DPS that is more than enough to destroy bosses in just seconds. Now for the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build achieves over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and a lot of instant life reach. Now, with the huge Hour of Effect bonus from Cyclone of Tumult, you don't even need to stay very close to enemies on endgame, what gives you even more survivability. Next, we have the magical and powerful Mage Skeletons Guardian with the Templar class. I'm sure you all remember that to transform our regular skeletons into mage ones, you used to need a unique jewel called Dead Reckoning. Well, that's changed because of the new Transfigured gems. Now, we have the Summon Skeletons of Mages gem that naturally summon mage skeletons without the need of any mandatory unique item and for a much lower price. This means that mage skeletons become an even better starter than before. To list the pros of this build, I would start with survivability. With the Guardian Ascendancy you get almost 75% chance to block attacks and spells, a huge life regeneration, and the new Sentinel of Radiance that takes 20% of the damage for you. All of that combined with the fact that this is a minion build that is very safe to play, because you stay behind your minions and they can kill enemies from a big distance. Also, with the new Elemental Relic, you and your minions get 3 damage auras totally for free, resulting in a great boss damage. Now to list the cons, I will start saying that Mage Skeletons don't move, they feel more like a totem build. For that reason, you need to keep resummoning them while clearing maps. The Guardian Ascendance also doesn't get a speed buff from Flash Offering like the Necromancer, so it's a little bit slower. Above all, when comparing to the Necromancer, this version also doesn't get that awesome 30% to all elemental resistance for you and your minions. This might cause your zombies and specters to die from elemental damage if you don't look for minion resistance on your rare gear. As for budget, this build is cheaper than ever. You can get it destroying early endgame maps with only around 50 chaos. To comfortably advance to yellow maps, I recommend investing around 120 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas I recommend investing around 4 Divines, but you can totally do it with less. For clear speed I'll give it 8 out of 10. You have many skeletons firing many projectiles at a high cast speed rate. I took 2 points out because the Mage Skeletons don't move and you need to keep resummoning them, and also because the Guardian does not get the flash offering speed buff like the Necromancer. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 9 out of 10. With the new returning projectile support gem, 100% of projectiles will hit enemies twice, but since it's not as powerful as the nerfed anomalous faster projectiles, I took 1 point out. For the survivability I'll give it 10 out of 10. This build has a big load of defensive layers such as high armor, 75% chance to block attacks and spells, a minion that takes 20% of the damage for you, and since it's a minion build, you are far from danger all the time. Finally, we have the super fast and tanky build, the Lightning Strike Trickster with the Shadow class. Lightning Strike is an awesome skill that used to be on top of the meta, but went down after a couple of nerfs. Now with the new returning projectile support gem, it's back with more power than ever. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its clear speed. Besides a strong melee hit, Lightning Strike also creates many lightning projectiles that run on the floor, killing every enemy on its path. Besides that, this build also counts with the Trickster Ascendance to be super fast and tanky. It has 7 frames charges for extra damage and speed and a lot of defensive layers. Now to list the cons, the first thing that comes to mind is that this build needs a good elemental claw to work properly, but don't worry, it's easy to buy one from other players. As for budget, this build is not expensive at all. You can get it destroying early in-game maps with only around 80 chaos. To comfort with advanced yellow maps, you need to invest around 150 chaos, and for easily completing your Atlas, I recommend investing around 4 Divines. For clear speed, I'll give this one 10 out of 10. As mentioned before, you have 7 frames charges and a huge effect of elusive that grants this build a lot of movement speed. Besides that, Lightning Strike creates many projectiles that run on the floor, exploding many enemies that aren't even close to you yet. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 9 out of 10. With the new returning projectile support gem, you deal a lot more damage to bosses. This one is an awesome boss killer. For the survivability, I'll give it 9 out of 10. This build has over 100,000 effective HP because of high armor, evasion, spell suppression, fortify, and even a trickster buff that causes you to take 40% less damage. Above all, you are immune to freeze and stuns. And that's it for today, guys. Have you already chosen your favorite starter build for the Necropolis League? Please don't forget to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!